Hello, I'm Christina, and I'm Tina, and we're your podcast hosts for Everyday Ordinary Extraordinary Women. We are deep divers and avid students of life and powerful facilitators for healing. In real life, I'm an intuitive healer who blends massage therapy with energy work to provide customized holistic services for my clients.
Hello, I'm a life coach specializing in pregnant women empowerment, and I am also a sound healer. And we both incorporate crystals and essential oils, and angelic Reiki, and of course, intuitive guidance into our work.
We were inspired to create this podcast after pondering this question. What would a world look like where we can be inspired by every person? Usually we're quick to compare and judge ourselves and others. And when we do that, everybody's losing. Depending on my point of view, I can either feel small because I come out lacking, or arrogant and dismissive because I feel superior. Those are the only two options, and neither of those make us feel very good. So here's our thought. Someone's everyday normal is someone else's extraordinary. Judgment comes from first impressions. So we invite you, the listener, to go beyond first impressions and see the magic everywhere. There's inspiration at every corner, in everyone, if we're willing to look. Today, we're so happy to welcome to the program, Kristen. So Kristen, go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi, well, thank you so much for having me on. My name is Kristen. I call myself a modern mystic because I don't quite know where I land on this spectrum of spirituality. And yeah, so I'm a TV producer, a podcast host. I was working at Lovestone in Oyster Bay, this crystal shop. I have to tell you, Martina, I'm not working there any longer because I'm focusing on myself and new dreams for 2025. So what I really love is astrology and pop culture. I eat, breathe, sleep pop culture, and I was trying to figure out a way to bridge the gap between the two. So past called Cosmic Coven, where we talk about pop culture through the lens of astrology. So really being able to take this ancient wisdom tradition, bringing it into modern day, because, you know, after all, not very much has changed, at least in terms of the human experience. So yeah, that's where we are right now. And I also have my little buddy, my puppy here, Poppy. She's snoring. So if you hear like a weird sound, that's her.
Thank you so much for being here. You know, I met you at the crystal store, right? It's like we were commiserating about the prices and how many we had to take home every time.
Totally.
And you know, one of the things I appreciated about you is like it felt like you were so open, and your smile is just so beautiful. And so
Thank you. So sweet.
I am so happy to have you here and, you know, dive into this conversation. So thank you for being here. And if we really knew you, what would we know about you?
Well, I guess in the spirit of astrology, if you really knew me, I am a Scorpio stellium, which means that I have several planets in Scorpio, which means I'm pretty easy to spot in the wild as far as astrology is concerned. So I really have been trying to lean into all of the positive traits of Scorpio lately. And yeah, that's what you would know. You would also probably know right off the bat that I'm a music head. I love music more than anything. And it's sort of what drives my creativity. It inspires me. And yeah,
You
pretty
also
much it.
your family is from Greece, right, originally?
Yes, my dad is from Greece. He was born in Greece and he emigrated over. And then my mom's side of the family is Irish. So it's sort of a weird mix, but I'm Chirish, we say. So, or Gyrish, I mean. But yeah, it's Yeah, it's really cool. And I actually have been really inspired by both of those cultures, and looking into all of sort of like the ancient wisdom, ancient traditions, connected to Celtic mythology, and then, of course, Greek mythology, and figuring out, again, how to sort of bridge that gap. I think that's the theme here. So it's cool.
It's interesting too, because they're both cultures that were water cultures, and you're a Scorpio too, which is a water sign. So that's interesting too.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. I never thought of it that way.
Hmm.
It's very cool. And yeah, and
Yes.
I
And
feel a
both,
very close connection to both traditions. I would say as of late, I've been really studying a lot of Greek mythology. I mean, there's just so much more Greek mythology just in terms of like accessible information. So I think that's part of it. But um, I think my goal this year is to really learn more about Celtic Norse traditions. I think it's so interesting.
I was going to say both of those places have very deep, powerful heretic,
Yeah,
heretic
yeah,
traditions that are
yeah,
not heretic, but
yeah.
yeah, beautiful.
Totally. I know. I love that. I remember when I was really young, I brought my mythology book to school, and I remember my teacher was telling the class what a myth was, and she's like, these are things that are not real. I'm like, how do you know? How do you know this isn't real? Like, and who knows? But I just remember being so drawn to the stories and the lessons, and the other thing I love about Greek mythology in general is that they're the gods and goddesses, of course, are deities, but they have such human foibles. Like they are jealous, they're rageful, they're vengeful. They can be empathetic and sweet. Like I just love that they really have this sort of range of emotion. Whereas I feel like sometimes in monotheism, it's just all good. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's that perfect
totally.
being where it's like, yeah, it's really cool. Like mythology is there's really and it's, as you said, it's like who says it's not true, right? Just we just decided there's that one God, and who says,
Yeah,
right?
right,
Because
right,
if we all are God, which we are, right?
right. Yeah.
There is no one God, and each expression we have is divine. So yeah,
So
beautiful.
cool. And I've never trained in yoga, but I was just reading about it the other day. Isn't namaste like the divine in me sees the divine in you, or something
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
that? That's so cool. Love that.
Beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's where I am right now. And I think just in general, there's something so fascinating just about connecting to these sort of ancient stories and um, our roots. I feel like part of our DNA is those experiences, even though we've lived hundreds of years later. Uh, and it's interesting because I love especially looking into just like they talk about family curses and this and that. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to break. I don't know what happened, but I know what my reaction is to this. But it's also fascinating. And where is your family from?
So I come from Italian on my mother's side and Irish on my dad's side.
Okay,
So
very
like pretty
similar
similar.
mix.
Very similar.
Yeah,
And
Yeah,
very
Martina.
that's
cool.
Swiss through and through.
Very cool.
But
I love
also
that.
perhaps you lived in those places in past lives. Like maybe I've been told I was a healer in past lives, and then I had this strong calling to go to Thailand to do this Thai massage class. And then Martina and I did a class with this psychic woman, and we're having lunch, and she goes, "Oh, everyone, Christina was a priestess in Thailand in a past life." And everyone was like, "Whoa, what?" And then Martina
Like,
like
yeah, it's
explains
true.
how like I nearly had a nervous
Yeah.
breakdown, like trying to get myself to Thailand. She's like, "Oh, that totally makes sense. Like it's probably like the time you died in that life and you were drawn to go back to it now." And so who knows what calls us to why we're drawn to
Yeah,
certain things, but I'd say we
totally.
probably have some remembrance of something we learned from those lifetimes that
Yes.
calls us to them.
And what are both of your signs, your sun signs?
So we're both Aries. Martina and I are 2 days apart.
I
Um,
love that. I'm
I'm
an Aries moon.
I'm Aries with Leo rising. I'm
Very cool. Fire.
yeah, all fire.
Lots of fire. I have, for me, it's almost like I have tons of planets in Aries. So
You do. I love
interesting.
that. I
Interesting.
love that. It explains the self-starting of this podcast. But I
Yeah.
love Aries for that reason. Like they get the show on the road. Very cool.
Yeah, but I've always had a ton of Scorpios in my life. So my mom, my brother, and sister are all Scorpios, and my boyfriend's a Scorpio.
Oh my
So,
God, really?
so it's this balance that they bring to my life of that water and fire. So pretty cool.
Totally. Very cool.
Yeah.
And what you were mentioning just about being drawn to Thailand too, do you ever look into astrocartography?
I have not, but I would love to learn more about that.
It's cool. I think if you go to astro.com, I'm pretty sure you could see it there, and it'll show you just sort of lines, of latitude, longitude, places that you may have lived or that were significant to you or may be significant in this lifetime already or have the potential to be. So cool.
Yeah.
It is, and it shows you which are the places that are best for you and which are the
Yeah.
places that are worst for you. And
Yeah,
it's really cool stuff. So
I
yeah.
gotta check that out.
Uh-huh.
All
Very
right.
cool.
You want to start with the questions, Martina?
I can start with the questions. So actually, like the icebreaker. So tell us something funny, like a funny, silly, or embarrassing story about yourself.
Sure. At the time it was all three, I would say. I was 16. So I'm from Oyster Bay originally, and I was working in the park at the booth, as like a gate girl when I was in high school. And it was a summer day, and there was a storm rolling in, from Connecticut. You could see it was pitch black. It was kind of like eerie, just an eerie summer storm. And they told us to lock up the booth. It was ungrounded at the time. It was like a garden shed because they were doing construction. And our booth was struck by lightning while we were inside of it, and I was unplugging the cash register. So I got an insane shock. So I always would tell people I was struck by lightning by proxy, kind of, but it really sort of changed things for me because that was the first time that I was like, okay, I know what I'm writing in my college essay. Okay, like, did this do anything to me apart from literally give me a shock of a lifetime? And I felt like I kind of woke up in that moment to real life. That was like the end of childhood, I guess. Kind of crazy. But then Newsday called and I made this ridiculous statement that was just so embarrassing, and it's eternalized in print. So there you
Wow.
go.
When you send us your bio, and you said that like you were a producer for MTV, and that
Yeah.
actually, that was your childhood dream,
Mm-hmm.
and that you made that happen, right? And then,
Yes.
and then it's like, okay, that was the stepping stone for whatever is next, and for whatever is
Yep.
next, and for whatever is next, right? And who knows what the last iteration is of your life, but I hope it's gonna keep changing and growing, right? But
Yes.
it's like it's so powerful to say that was my childhood dream, and I made it happen, and here you are, right?
Yeah.
And it's
And
like, okay,
visually,
yeah.
yeah, it's so cool. And growing up here, I would go into the city to go see concerts, and I was an emo kid. Like I just loved all of those shows and whatnot. So I remember standing outside of MTV Studios holding a sign for Blink 182. I loved them so much. And then I just remember this one experience where I was inside the studio looking out at the kids holding the signs, and it was just so cool. It was just one of those moments that it was like, wow, you did get yourself in there. I don't know how, but you did. It was funny. So that was special. Yeah, that's a magical studio too in Times Square. Very cool.
So
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was fun. And now I'm like, all right. There's something about being so young too, and just not seeing any ceilings or any blockages, and you're just like, that's what I want. And I think that's like almost the purest power, the purest magic is just going after these dreams. So now I have to, recalibrate, figure out what's the next dream, and then we'll shoot for it.
Well, I think it's perfect to lead into next question. What is your superpower? But I feel like lightning often like wakes up these powers in people. So it's really, really wild. But what would you say your superpower is? And it could be more than one. You don't pick just one.
Well, I think as for all women, our superpowers are intuition, in general. I mean, men too. I don't want to, not include them as well. I just think that throughout history, women were just always on alert. So I think that we could pick up on things so much. So yes, I think intuition, but also just tying it back to astrology. Like every sign has their superpower and their kryptonite. So it's really a matter of harnessing those superpowers or that energy for good. And that's sort of what I love. So honesty, I pride myself in that, but my superpower is to be able to connect with people, I think, and just not have any pretenses in general. And I think that really helped with developing and casting shows. But yeah, I try to see the best in people. And I think, I appreciate that about myself.
That's really good. Yeah, it's funny. I was about to sum it up by like, oh, it sounds like you see the best in people and situations, which I can see makes you a great producer or a talent, like,
Yeah.
person for MTV, because that's what you're doing, right? You're looking for who's got that personality that's gonna fit and all of that. So
well, I love that you mentioned that too, because like I would always joke around with people. I'm like, I have an eye for talent. I have an eye for talent, because it's like talent scouting. But the thing that I also love with MTV is the demographic is it changes every so often, but it's like 14 to, let's say, 28. And so it's a lot of times these young people who have not totally even stepped into their power, but you can see what they're going to do or what they're capable of. And I love that. Just finding, an artist that you're like, wow, okay, I'll see you in 5 years at the Garden. Like, that's wild, which is really cool.
I love that.
And did you get to see some of them like that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I would say Billie Eilish was one of them. We were in a room with 20 people, and now I can't afford her tickets because she's so good. Who else? A lot of these sort of like punk emo bands, Paramore. A lot of it is music, but who else is it? Oh, I was watching CNN the other day, and Omar Jimenez, he's a journalist on there. He's somebody that I interviewed 5 years ago, because it's like that kid, that Northwestern, but he has something crazy about him. Like you could just see it in people. So that's cool to see it materialize in real life. And then in just casting shows and hosts, and so there have been a number of those situations.
Love it.
So
cool.
So what made you who you are today? For example, what was your biggest lesson, or what took the most courage, or when did you stand up for something that mattered to you?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. Well, I think I stand up for myself a lot, but I also stand up for a lot of people, and that can rub people the wrong way, I guess, in positions of authority. So that is always kind of fun for me to do. But let's think, what's the most courageous thing I've ever done? I don't know. I have to think about it, really. I mean, there are so many times that I've reached out to people that I would be like, this is a joke, but I'll reach out to them and we'll see if they write back, and they'll write back. And then we would have a meeting, things like that. That would be so wild to me. Different like rappers from the 90s that I loved, I became friendly with. Like it's just bizarre. But I think any time that I've like really stepped out of a comfort zone, tried something new, whenever you're sort of feeling like, I don't want to do this, that's when you do it. And I love the moments of sort of satisfaction. what comes next. And also telling my parents I was a witch. They were like, what? What's going on in your apartment? There, it looks like an apothecary or something. I'm like, well, here you go.
How old were you when you told your parents you were a witch?
I think probably 30 something. But I also didn't even really realize it. I didn't even step into that power really. I didn't have to. I would say I really got into astrology during my Saturn return, which is like 29 and a half. My best friend passed away, and I was really looking for answers because I was getting all of these messages and having these experiences that I couldn't explain. So it wasn't so much of like reaching out of desperation, like, there has to be something bigger. It was really like, okay, there's clearly something bigger going on, because all of these messages that come through or signs or things could not be coincidences. So that is really when I started to delve into it. And yeah, I love that. And then there was another moment, I'll pull this out, that for the longest time I was seeing bees everywhere, like just bees, symbology, bees, bees, bees. And my friend and I also think she's a witch, but we were out walking around in Brooklyn, and I bought a bee necklace, and then we walked back to my apartment, and there was a piece of paper on the ground, and I was like, what was that? And I turned around, and it was a page from The Secret Life of Bees, which is so crazy. But there's this one line here that at the top of the page, and it reminds me just sort of our conversation. It says, honeybees depend not only on physical contact with the colony, but also require its social companionship and support. Isolate a honeybee from her sisters, and she will soon die. So I just thought that was like almost an initiation type of thing. It's cool.
What is the meaning of the bees?
Well, it actually traces back to Greek mythology and the Melissa, and witchcraft, and it's about that sort of teamwork in a way, like that keeps the hive running, and it's that very subtle communication that telepathic maybe or whatnot, but it has a lot to do with this sense of community in a way. That's cool.
Beautiful. It's really cool.
Yeah. So that was one of those moments that I was like, all right, I'm in. I'm fully in. This is too weird. So yeah.
It is fascinating because it is, like we come here with all these, I'm gonna call it gifts, for the lack of a better word. And then, stuff gets piled up on us, and then we want to become somebody rather than just being who we are meant to be. Right. And the trajectory of that, but there's always that thread that leads through our lives that is always there, like who we are, right? Who we are.
Totally. And I
In
don't know if it's
whichever
your
way,
higher
right?
self. Yeah. And I always try to think about that. I'm like, your higher self, did we plot these points already and they know sort of the way, or are we truly growing and evolving and just on our own path? I really don't even know, but I don't know, both seem cool to me. But it does seem like there is this sort of inner knowing, even if it's not so strong all the time, of what's next, but just following that like niggle of something.
Yeah.
Cool. How did you get into spiritual work?
I don't know if there's like a specific like aha moment. I grew up going to Catholic school, so we were always educated in other world religions. My parents did a good job of like taking us to a lot of cultural things in New York City growing up. So we were exposed to lots of different cultures, and so I think that kind of sparked my curiosity. But I think I just was born a curious thinker and wanted to know what made people so for me it's all part
Yeah.
of understanding people and I know I'm put here to be of service. So to be of service, I need to understand people and what makes them
Mhm.
tick. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
So what came first, the chicken or the egg? I'm not really sure, right? But
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's one specific thing. But I got my first ohm tattoo. My first tattoo was an ohm and I
Cool.
wanted it when I was 19, but my parents were like, not while we're helping you pay for college, you're not. So I didn't get my
Right.
first tattoo till I turned 25, but it was an ohm, and that was my real like
Yeah.
diving into that realm, right? Like,
Cool. I love that too. You're like, I'm committed now for life. Yeah, it's
and then
cool.
my poor parents were just like, what? What?
Uh-huh.
Why?
Yeah.
And then like the next tattoo was Kuan Yin, and then they're like,
Oh,
oh, so
so
Buddhist
cool.
and Hindu, like, where's your
Yeah.
Christian tattoos? And I'm like, why do I need Christian tattoos? Like,
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
know I'm a Christian. I don't need those. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so it was hard for my parents to understand it, but um, for me, I feel like organized religion does not have any of the answers. So for me, it was taking what worked from each of them and learning and keep moving, and that kind of, I guess, was what's sent me on my journey.
Yes, that's so cool. And it does remind me a bit of astrology too, all of these multicultures, like, cultures that had no contact with one another or that were halfway around the world have very similar mythology connected to the stars. And so that fascinates me more than like trying to control people, and I feel that from organized religion so much. But, like all of these cultures have such wisdom. It's like, hello, let's tap in. It's
Yeah,
all here.
yeah, exactly. So
And it leads back to the conversation we had in the beginning, right? There's the
Mhm.
one male God, right?
Mm,
Um, you know,
right. The Trinity. I
which is
always,
very, very, very limited, right? But at the
yeah,
core of it is love, right? And
totally.
love is that's the religion, right? The religion
Yeah.
is love.
Yeah.
And in whichever form it comes, right? Whether it's
Mhm.
Buddha or, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
really, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's the humans that get in the way of it. Yeah.
always.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us about a time you took a chance on love, and it doesn't have to be romantic love,
Let's
self-love
see.
or friendship.
Hmm. I would say what's the time I took a chance on love? Um, Actually, this sort of relates back to my best friend who had passed away. We went to high school together, but he was a year older than me, and so we didn't hang out together so much, but we were in our very early 20s, maybe like 21 or 22, and we were at a party and I walked in and he like flew off a trampoline and was like, "Hey, I always had this feeling that we're supposed to be friends." And I was like, cool. And it was never weird. It was never like, oh, should I go? Should I not? And it was just sort of falling into friendship so naturally that, um, yeah, I don't know. I felt like I gave my heart over so easily because it was so natural. So, yeah, I think that was part of it. The other part, I moved to LA for a semester when I was in college, and that to me was so huge because I love my family so much. But why are you leaving us? Where are you go? Why are you doing this to us? There's a lot of that. So um, I had the best adventures when I just sort of went with no expectations. And I worked on Scrubs, which was so fun. And then at Entertainment. And I was like a 21-year-old just running around and starting life. So I'm proud of that version, that 21-year-old for just taking a risk like that. It's cool.
Yay. So following your heart. Yay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I see
Yeah.
that.
And
It's kind of like
go ahead.
a threaded theme through, right? Like,
Yeah, you have to because I mean, I'm sure for both of you too, so intuitive. Like when you get in that moment where you're like, I cannot be in this situation a moment longer, otherwise, like your magic dies, kind of. So you really have to.
I manifest physical, like literally like my face swells when I'm in a situation that doesn't make me happy. It's so obvious to everyone. I'm
Yeah.
not pleasant to be around. It's just like, what is happening? And it's usually like time to change jobs, time to leave,
Mhm.
whatever. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. It's so
Hmm.
important too, because, life is short. We might come back. I don't want to say you only live once. You may live several times, but yeah, you don't want
But
to live
make
with
the most of
regrets.
your time in this physical form.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So cool.
It, it's fascinating, this whole conversation, right? It's like, can we listen to the intuition? Can we, and we live in this so structured world where, like there's the definition of success is how much you have and
Mhm.
like your job title and then just giving that up. Are you kidding
Yeah,
me? Right? So
yeah. But we
like
need
the
to kill the
courage.
ego deaths all
Yeah,
the time.
the courage it takes
Yeah,
to take those steps is actually quite brilliant.
that's
So,
cool.
who or what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, if you could
Mm.
do anything or be anything, what would that be and why? Like, if there's no limitations, no restrictions, all the time in the world, all the money in the world,
Yeah.
what would you be doing?
Oh gosh. And this is where I sort of am getting hung up on what is the next dream, because I love so many things that don't make sense together necessarily. So yeah, I guess in one version of my future, I would be teaching sort of metaphysics, or traveling and learning more metaphysics, things like that. But I love music so much, and I love music documentaries. And my favorite thing is to sort of uncover a story that's not told, but that has so many rich layers to it. I'll give you an example. So I we were trying to develop new music content for a couple of years when MTV was going to go back to music, and there was this one guy who's a hip hop. I mean, he's a journalist, music journalist, but he's probably like one of the best writers, I would say, in hip hop, especially. So I reached out to him and I asked, is there any story that you've ever covered that you felt didn't get due credit, or that there was just so much there? And he said, yeah, Lil Boozy's murder trial. So it was a murder trial where lyrics were on trial, which was fascinating because it was art on trial, and it was taking place in Louisiana, which still abides by Napoleonic code. You could bring a gun into the state house. Like, it's very strange down there. And so this was all taking place in Baton Rouge. And this is, before all of the riots and things like that. So it was just sort of this microcosm for everything that was going on in the world. And I loved that. Like, I love telling stories through other vessels that are not what they seem on the surface, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one that really stood out.
Cool.
Love it.
Yeah,
And who says all of your passions can't be combined into some amazing next project? Like,
right. I
it's
know.
like
What's to say? How do we? I don't know. Maybe it's a
'cause no one's
visual.
ever done it before, so it could be the most amazing thing ever. It's what
Yeah,
we're all waiting for.
exactly. I know. I'm waiting for that eureka moment. Those are the best.
Yeah. Yeah. You just got to keep asking your angels. What is it?
Yeah.
What's the right timing of it? It'll come to you.
What's the
That's
next
so
step?
true.
What's the
Right.
next
What's the
step?
next
What's
step?
the next step?
Who's the next person you need to talk to? Just keep
Yeah.
asking your guides and they'll keep pointing you in the right direction. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. And that's such a good point too, because, um, you know, again, like connecting back to when I started seeing all these signs and symbols and just receiving all of these messages, it was when I asked, like it almost has to be spoken out loud. And you need to really believe it. You can't just be like, well, send me a sign, like in my head, it really, and I always forget that too, that
Yep.
They're
Our
there.
agents
Just
are
ask.
always there to help us, but we need to ask for help. Yeah. This is the
Yeah.
biggest thing I love teaching my clients, and yeah, brilliant.
It's
And
so
sometimes
cool.
it's like, okay, if you gave me a sign today, I did not get it. I need
Oh,
clear signs. I need
yeah.
I know.
very, very clear signs
Yeah.
because otherwise.
Yes. Do you get like
Sometimes the prayer is open my eyes so I can see the message, please and thank you. Yeah.
yes, yes, totally. Do you experience like a certain sensation, or do you see a certain repeating number or something when you know you're on the right track? Like how is it that you know you've received the message?
For me, it's just a clear knowing. It just like downloads so like I
Yeah.
was in yoga class one night. I was making some spray bottles of like aromatherapy spray bottles for a little craft sale I was going to be at. And in class, it was like, take whatever out of the recipe and put in whatever. And I was just like, what? I
What?
never ever heard a message like that in my life. And it was just like, yeah, I have no doubt like that was a clear downloaded message to me. And another time I was working on a client here in this room, and I put my hand on the client, and my guys are like, grab a selenite wand and clear her energy now. And I was just like,
Oh,
whoa.
message received.
Once again, never did I
Yeah.
ever have that one before. I was like, all right, excuse me, I gotta step out, grab a selenite wand, and be right back. We're gonna clear your energy. And she was just like, whoa, that was amazing.
Wow.
So for me, when they come through that clear, I just know. I know, and I just go with it. I don't ever doubt anymore because I don't know where
And
they
does
come
it come
from.
through like a certain voice, or it's just sort of that like knowing?
Just a clear knowing. It's so loud and clear. It's just like, oh, that was
So
a message
cool.
for me, and I gotta
Yeah.
you know.
And for me, it's also like it's the knowing. It's just like
Mhm.
I'm someplace and it's like, okay, do I really like I'm in the midst of this. I cannot play the singing bowl right now. Play the singing bowl. Or ask that question. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not gonna ask that question. Or like when
Yeah.
I came into the store
Mhm.
and there was this young man and he was like, ask him to come on the podcast. I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't know him. I was here for 5 minutes. I'm first, yeah, I'm laying in acupuncture. It's like you have to go to the crystal store. I'm like, I was in the crystal store last night. I'm not going to go spend any more money, right? And then I go into the crystal store and there he is, and you're there and you're both talking. And I'm like, no, you know,
Yeah.
that's my first reaction always. But it's like, okay, I need to ask. So let me ask, right?
Well, that is what I love too. It's like, I think that that is the superpower, I think, for all of us too. It's like listening to your intuition, even when it doesn't make sense, especially when it doesn't make sense, because you're like, what? Okay. These are our like inner GPS, turn right. And you're like, what? Okay. I don't think this is a
Yeah.
shortcut, but okay.
And being
Yeah.
willing to listen, right? That's
Mhm.
the other part, right? Because it's like, for me as an Aries, my
Mhm.
bratty self is right there. It's like, I'm not gonna do what I'm told, right? And then I'm like, okay, Martina, you have to listen. And I've learned, as Christina said before too, right? It's like I've learned to, okay, I'm gonna listen because I'm being told, so I'm gonna just follow. But my first reaction still is always like, you're kidding me.
Mhm.
You're kidding
Yeah,
me.
I know. It's so true. It's so fun. I do
Mm-hmm.
love that.
Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm. All right. So if you had a magic wand and could give people any quality, what would it be and why?
Ooh, okay. So this always reminds, I would say healing, the ability to heal. And I'm not sure if you do tarot, but there's this card, the Temperance card, which is the 14th card in the tarot, and it's about alchemy, but it's also about healing. So there's this weird connection with that, and it's sort of the same thing, like being able to see the magic in somebody else or make magic with somebody else as a way to heal in a lot of ways. So yeah, I would
I
sort of
also see it as the magic in other things, right? So in essential
mhm,
oils, in
totally
mushrooms, or whatever it is, right? The
yes.
the gifts, And for me, that's what a witch is, right? It's seeing
Mhm.
how all the honoring the benefits of everything that's around us.
It's true, yeah, and in that temperance card, there's an angel. So there's also that element too that's just a little mysterious, and it being the card of Sagittarius, Sagittarius is like a lucky sign. I don't know. If I could give I wish I could hand out a temperance card to everybody and we could work together.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
So, Kristen, what are you most proud of? Like, what do you consider your biggest accomplishment?
I would say I so I loved developing different projects, and the thing that I'm most proud of, I'll just give you an example. We were meeting with an artist who was very funny, just online. Like you could see, had this just crazy intelligence, but also so funny, but was a rapper. And you're like, okay, well, what are these other layers that are to him? Because this is so fascinating. So we had a meeting and he started talking about all of these conspiracy theories like Monsanto right away, and talking about how there's this landmass in South America where people are living to 150. You know, I didn't know if any of these things were true, but he really knew his stuff as it related to that. So that I went home, sat down, and came up with an idea and ended up calling it the Waka Flocka Files, where he would go and investigate different conspiracy theories. And so seeing that go from just a random thought in my head to reach out to him to it then becoming an episode was so fascinating to be just to be able to, you're like, wow, I did that. That's super cool. Like it is just to see something come to life. It's just awesome. Same with being a mother, you know, just bringing something to life. It's, I think, what I'm most proud of. Just cool.
Yeah, I'm sure you see it with your dog too, right? Like when you teach them a
Yeah.
trick or when you watch them watch you and figure something out.
Mhm.
Like when we first
Oh,
got our
yes.
husky and she watched my boyfriend open the door and then she turned around behind him and opened the door and we're like,
It's such
but I still love that. I love watching brains figure stuff out and yeah,
oh,
it's
it's awesome.
so good.
Yeah.
What I love about that is the pride that you take in it, like the I did that, right? We don't
Yeah.
have enough of that. We in this world we don't have, hey, I am actually extraordinary. No, I
Right.
am.
Right. And then we just sort of downplay it to ourselves later and like, you're like, no, you literally made magic. You did something there. So take a second to do it again or just, be proud of it. Cool.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so good. So Kristen, what
Yeah.
fills you up? What recharges your batteries?
Music all day, I'd say. And, I think that like we're so porous when it comes to music too. So, um, Uh, yeah, I don't know. You know what? Like discovering, I have just this like tendency to listen to the same song 800 times in a row, and then I'll be like, okay, I'm done. But when I find that song, that like sparks creativity. So I'm just constantly searching for new music in general, and hearing magic in music. There's such a magic to it. Is so fascinating. So that sort of takes me out of myself, puts me in another, like I think music sort of exists on another wavelength in general. So I don't know if it's like beta, I can't remember, but or delta
Hmm.
or something like that. But it is getting into that zone is so fun.
So what's the song that's on repeat right now for you?
What is actually what is on repeat is Gracie Adams.
Okay.
Oh, actually, you know what? No, The Architect by Casey Musgraves. It's
Okay.
such a beautiful song. And
Cool.
it's about trying to figure out like who the architect is to this whole design.
Nice.
Um, yeah, that one's been on quite a lot.
Awesome. My
Yeah, I'll
current
send it
is
to you.
mine is Super Sad by Suki Waterhouse.
Oh, cool.
That's
She's
my
super
current.
talented.
Ugh, when I want to get into, I know it's called Super Sad, but the song is still really upbeat and makes you feel good. So
Well, and even if it is, sometimes it calls for that. I love
Yeah,
that.
I love that song. So super.
I love listening to
I'm gonna
This
write it
Is
down.
Me right now.
What is it?
This Is Me from The Greatest Showman.
Oh, okay.
That
I'm
is
writing all of this down.
just, it's
Very cool.
this is me. You cannot put me down. You cannot bring me down. This is me. It's
Awesome.
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay, so last question.
Sure.
What are you most grateful for?
Let's see. Well, I would say my family, of course. I'm very grateful for the sewage system. I like try to be grateful every day for like different these things that I'm like, if I didn't have a refrigerator, this would, like just even things like that. But I'm just very grateful that there is so much magic and it feels like a game sometimes, like a treasure hunt, in life. And so that sort of keeps me going in general. But yeah, I'm just thankful that happy, healthy, my family is so wonderful and life is good.
Beautiful.
Mm.
I can see that you practice gratitude, and it's one of it's so cool because if you listen to someone who appreciates it, it just lifts the mood, right? Just listening to it. You
Yeah.
don't even have to generate it, but just listening to someone saying, "Oh wow, yeah, I'm in the fridge, of course." Like
Yeah.
indoor plumbing. I'm like, yes,
Yes.
please,
Yeah.
right?
Thank God. Yeah. I know. I
And
always try
then
to think
and
of
then
like
for
the
me, of
really,
course, there's chocolate because chocolate, hey,
oh,
chocolate,
yes.
right?
Yes. Yes. There are these like little gifts, these glimmer gifts. And I will say that was part of coming back to Oyster Bay. This was not in the plan necessarily, but like I now appreciate it so much more than I ever did, from like 1 to 18 or something like that, and it's just been so cool to understand, like, yeah, where you were when you grew, I guess.
Just
Beautiful.
seeing
And
it
I
from a
love
new
it. So
perspective,
beautiful.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
cool.
So, Kristen, you have a business, or
I do.
so do you want to
Okay,
tell us about it and tell us how
sure.
people can reach you? And we're going to put everything in the notes, but just, if you can give
Yeah,
us what you do and how you support people and how people can find you.
yeah. Okay, sure. Yeah. So my business, it's called Cosmic Coven, but it's really just me. And I do astrology readings. So I'll do people's birth charts and we'll go through, try to figure out, it's a map of our lives, past and future. So that's my favorite thing. So if anyone wants to get a reading, you can go to my website, which is cosmiccoven.co. Or if you go on Instagram, it's just at Cosmic Coven Co. So I'll send you all that too. But yeah, I've been doing readings a lot and I have to get back in my podcast. Thank you for re-inspiring me because it's time to get our stuff together. And yeah, that's where we are right now. I'll also consult with people. It's called electional astrology, which is when you find a date that's most that will give you sort of a cosmic tailwind for whatever project you're looking to launch. So yeah,
Most auspicious day. I remember when we
exactly.
went to India, they were like, it's the most auspicious time. So, yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And you're like, why not? Why work against it? Might
Yeah,
as well.
Mhm.
beautiful,
Cool.
beautiful.
Yeah. And a
So,
lot of artists do it. They release their albums astrologically
really?
based.
Huh?
Yes. Taylor Swift does it all the time. Billie Eilish. Let's see. Rihanna launched Fenty, her Fenty Beauty, when Jupiter was in Pisces, Jupiter being the planet of luck in her sign. So she's like, yep, let's do it. So you can see patterns in it too, which is
Oh,
cool.
that is really cool.
Yeah.
We might check that out, Christina.
Yeah.
Next project, right?
It's
I love
super
learning
cool.
new things.
It's really, really cool. And eclipses. A lot of artists release things on eclipses. They're just
Yeah.
big emotional moments.
Yes,
Mm.
I can totally get that. That's also very lots of energy time.
Totally.
So,
And here's the thing, I don't know if the people necessarily pick it out I mean, I do think a lot of them work with astrologers, but I also think that sometimes artists are just so in tune with the flow of energy, what's happening on Earth, that, you know, it just happens naturally. So it's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, they're actually more connected to their bodies too, right?
100%. Yeah.
Musicians and dancers are more connected to their bodies. So
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful. So thank you so much for being here. It was
Oh
such a
my gosh, thank you for having
pleasure.
me. This is awesome.
It was a lot of fun. We learned so much. Christina and I usually were at the end, we're like, oh my goodness, this was so exciting.
I love
So,
that. That's how cool. What a cool
so
project. And you guys are so wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
thank
It was a
you.
pleasure. So much fun.
Thank you so much for being here, really.
Oh,
And for you out there, just thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If you love this, please leave us a review. Please share. Please go check out Kristen's website and find out what she does. If you want to find out more about us, our Linktree profiles are in the notes. And please always remember that you are extraordinary and you rock. Until next time,
oh,
have a wonderful day.
Bye
bye.
for now. Go ahead, Kristen. You get to say goodbye.
Oh, bye. Thank you so much again. Have an awesome day.